Have you ever looked back at a trade and thought, why did I do that? You had the setup, the strategy, the confidence, but something cracked. You clicked too early. You held too long. You added size where you swore you wouldn't, and then came the damage, the loss, the silence. And in that moment, when someone asked what happened, you didn't have a logical answer because there wasn't one. You mumbled, I don't know why I did it, but what if I told you that moment wasn't random? What if I told you it was familiar? You see, this isn't just about trading, it's about the echoes we carry. The ones recorded in us long before we learned what a candlestick is, long before the charts, long before the numbers. We were already wired to react, to flinch, to chase, to freeze, and every time we click the mouse, we might just be replaying one of those recordings. Welcome to the Black Box, a journey inside the nervous system of a trader, not to learn about setups, but to understand the setup inside you. This is not about discipline, it's about memory, not strategy, but story. And if you've ever sabotaged your own trades, if you've ever felt like something else took over your hand, then you're exactly where you need to be, because the most powerful edge in trading isn't technical, it's emotional sovereignty. And that begins right now. You think you're making decisions in real time. You think your click is a response to what you see on the chart. But let me offer you a different lens, one that may change how you see every trade you've ever placed. You're not reacting to the market. You're replaying a recording. That spike in price, that red candle, that false breakout, it didn't cause your emotion. It simply triggered it because buried beneath your strategy, beneath your technicals and confirmations, is a nervous system loaded with echoes, emotional recordings, some recent, some ancient, moments of shame, moments of fear, moments when you learned the world isn't always safe, when uncertainty meant punishment, when failure meant rejection, when a wrong answer made someone frown and you internalized it. Those moments didn't disappear. They got stored. They got wired into your reactions. And now, decades later, they replay every time the market gets loud. You look at a setup, clean, high probability, perfectly aligned, but something tightens in your chest. Your hand freezes. You hesitate. You think you're responding to the chart, but your body is responding to something else, a memory, a moment, a scar. A trader once told me he couldn't hold his trades to target, always close them early. No matter how clean the confluence, he bailed the moment he saw green. He thought it was fear, but it was deeper. He wasn't afraid of losing profit. He was afraid of being slow. When he was 7, he got yelled at for hesitating, called lazy, told to hurry up, shamed for thinking too much. So now, every time he waits, that same panic rises. Not in the mind, but in the body. You see, the market didn't teach him that. It just triggered what was already there. And that's the terrifying beauty of trading psychology. Your chart is just a mirror. It doesn't show you where price is going. It shows you what's playing inside. You might say, no, not me. I've done the work. I've got control. But here's the thing. These recordings don't ask for permission. They don't need your belief. They just wait for uncertainty, for pressure, for that one candle that looks too familiar, and then they press play. You've probably noticed this. You perform well until a certain type of setup appears, or until you hit a certain size, or until you've had 2 wins in a row, and suddenly you break the rules. Not because your logic changed, but because the recording took over. That moment, when your click doesn't make sense, that's the most honest moment you'll ever have in trading, because it reveals the truth. You're not trading the market. You're trading your history. The last time you were criticized, the last time you were uncertain, the last time you were small, powerless, and someone made you feel it. And until you see that, until you name that, your trades will keep echoing pain. This is why strategy isn't enough. This is why you can backtest perfectly and still blow it live, because you're not trading setups, you're trading recordings. And here's the worst part. You can't out-discipline something you haven't seen. You can't out-journal a loop you haven't named. So what do? You start by admitting the truth. That wasn't random. That was familiar. That last click, that emotional surge, that moment of sabotage, it wasn't a mistake. It was a replay. And if you listen closely, you'll hear the voice behind it. The voice that says, don't wait. You'll lose it all again. Better exit now. You're not good enough to hold this. You thought that was your intuition? It wasn't. It was memory, dressed as instinct. And the moment you see that clearly, you open a door to freedom. Because what you can see, you can question. What you can question, you can interrupt. And what you interrupt no longer owns you. That's how you reclaim the click. Not by fighting emotion, but by recognizing it's not about the chart. It never was. He never traded a single day in his life. He never read a chart, never touched a terminal, never placed a single order. And yet, your father, or whoever shaped your emotional world as a child, may have more control over your trades than you ever imagined. Let that sink in for a moment, because this is where things get personal. Before you learned about technicals, before you understood stop losses or trend lines, you learned something else, something deeper, invisible. You learned what it meant to be right, what it cost to be wrong. You learned how approval felt when you got it, and how silence stung when you didn't. You learned that mistakes weren't just events, they were judgments. And those judgments, they left scars. You see, your trading terminal doesn't just reflect price, it reflects identity. And if your identity got fused with performance growing up, then every trade becomes a test, not of the system, but of your worth. I worked with a trader once, brilliant guy, great system, 2.5 R average, 65% win rate. But he had a habit, 1 second of hesitation before entering, a tiny delay. It cost him thousands over time. When we dug deeper, it wasn't about mistrust in his edge. It wasn't fear of loss, it was a memory. He was 8. In class, he raised his hand, gave the wrong answer. His father was in the back of the room that day, and all the man did was shake his head. No yelling, no insult, just that silent, soul-cutting gesture of disappointment. That single moment etched itself into his nervous system like acid on steel. Every time he faced uncertainty, his body remembered that look. So, decades later, in front of a chart, his hand would pause, just long enough to miss the entry. Because in his nervous system, waiting too long risked the head shake, and entering too fast risked being wrong. Either way, he was trading against a ghost. Let's talk about that for a second. Identity fusion. It's when your emotional value fuses with the outcome of a trade. A red candle doesn't just mean a stop out, it means you failed. It means you're not enough. It means the voice from your past was right about you. That's the danger. You don't trade setups, you trade stories. And the most powerful stories aren't in books, they're in your nervous system. Think about this. Every time you close a trade too early, who are you trying to please? Every time you hold too long, who are you afraid to disappoint? Every time you revenge trade, whose anger are you channeling? Because if you don't know who's actually clicking the mouse, you're not a trader. You're an echo. And echoes don't make decisions, they repeat them. What's wild is how many traders never trace this back. They think it's about risk management, about psychology tools, but tools don't fix trauma. Tools don't undo the wiring that got laid when you were a child trying to make someone proud or trying not to be seen as weak. Let me ask you, do you remember the first time you were told that's wrong? Do you remember how your body felt when it happened? Tight chest, heat in your face. That memory might be in your trades right now, living in your entries, breathing inside your exits. And here's the thing. It doesn't have to be dramatic to be damaging. Sometimes it's the quietest moments that leave the deepest grooves. A sarcastic comment, a disapproving glance, a joke that wasn't a joke. All those moments got recorded, and now they play every time your P&L flickers. You say, I need consistency. But maybe what you really need is closure. You say, I just want to stop sabotaging myself. But maybe what you're actually doing is reenacting a script where success was never safe. You're not greedy, you're not weak, you're not undisciplined, you're human. And humans carry stories in their bodies. Trading just happens to be the one arena where all your inner ghosts come to play, loud, fast, unforgiving. And if you're unaware of whose voice is behind your trades, you'll keep obeying it. You'll keep chasing a form of approval no chart can ever give you. But here's the breakthrough. You can rewrite it. You can interrupt the echo. It starts with awareness, with asking every time you feel that old fear rise, whose voice is this? And then choosing consciously to trade from your own, because you're not here to win your father's approval or your teachers or your coaches. You're here to trade your system with your presence for your reasons. And that means stepping out of the loop. It means refusing to let a decades-old memory run your strategy. The chart doesn't care about your past, But if you don't face it, your past will keep caring about your chart. And that is the real trap. So next time you feel the ghost rise, pause, breathe, and say to yourself, this is not mine. Then click. Not for approval, not for redemption, but from clarity. That's when you stop being an echo and start being a trader again. There are trades that show up in your history, and then there are trades that live only in your head, not because they never happened, but because you never clicked. And sometimes those are the ones that hurt the most. You didn't take the breakout, you hesitated on the bounce, you watched the setup run 200 points without you, no stop loss, no fill, no record. But the pain, it's real. It lives in your chest. It wakes you up at 3:47 a.m. It replays again and again as if the missed trade was a failure, not of your system, but of you. You didn't lose money, but you lost something else, a feeling, a belief, a version of yourself that you thought would have acted. And that betrayal, that stings deeper than any drawdown. A trader once confessed to me he felt more rage missing a perfect entry than losing on a real one. He wasn't mad at the market. He was mad at himself, not because of the setup, but because of what it represented: hesitation, weakness, indecision. And from that place, he did what most traders do. He jumped into the next available setup, double size, no confirmation, just trying to erase the pain. But how do you erase something that never existed? He spiraled, not from technicals, from emotion, from phantom pain. And that's the tragedy of it. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real loss and an imagined one. It just registers the feeling, the regret, the what if. In psychology, it's called counterfactual thinking, replaying alternate realities that feel as painful as actual events. Your nervous system doesn't care if the chart was real. It only remembers how you felt, which means you might be revenge trading against a loss that never even touched your account. Let that sink in. You're reacting emotionally to something you never actually experienced, and you're trying to fix it by taking more action. Only now, you're doing it from a place of shame, not clarity. This is the phantom limb phenomenon of trading. You feel pain in a place that technically doesn't exist, but it still hurts. Like an amputee who swears their missing hand is on fire, your nervous system screams when you hesitate again. And now, you're not just trying to execute well, you're trying to prove that you're not broken. You start thinking things like, I always hesitate. I'm not built for this. Real traders wouldn't miss that entry. And just like that, a missed trade becomes an identity crisis. It's no longer about what you didn't do, it's about who you believe you are. And that's the real cost of phantom trades. They don't just leave you frustrated, they leave you ashamed. And shame, that's where sabotage starts. You chase setups that aren't there. You enter too big, too fast, too often. Not because of FOMO, but because of an invisible score you're trying to settle with yourself. So what do? You name it. You honor it. Not the missed trade, but the feeling. You start a ghost trade journal, a place to document the trades you didn't take. Not to punish yourself, but to process the echo. Because when you give it a name, you give it a home. And when it has a home, it stops haunting you. Here's how it works. You think of the last missed move that stuck with you. You don't log the chart. You log the emotion. Was it regret? Was it anger? Was it a voice that said, you blew it again? Now write this sentence under it. This feeling is real, but the loss is not. Feel what shifts in you. Because when you separate emotion from reality, you separate identity from action. You reclaim the truth. The market creates thousands of opportunities a day. Missing one isn't failure, it's physics. But the mind doesn't see it that way. It sees scarcity, it sees deficiency, it sees weakness until you teach it otherwise. That's the work, not more strategy, more self-trust. Because the market isn't your teacher, it's your trigger. It doesn't punish you, it reveals you. And in those moments when you feel the ache of the phantom, pause. Name the echo, not to erase it, but to release it. You are not your hesitation. You are not the trade you didn't take. You are not your past response. You're the one who notices it. And that means you can change it. That's when the loop breaks. That's when the ghost disappears. And that's when your trades start coming from the present, not the past. You think you're trading the market, you're not. You're trading your map of the market, your beliefs, your language, your internal narrative. And if that map is distorted, your trades will be too. The philosopher Alfred Korzybski said, the map is not the territory. It means what you think something is not what it actually is. And nowhere is that more true than in trading. You don't trade price, you trade perception. You don't respond to candles. You respond to your meaning of them. And that meaning? It's shaped by your words. Let's look closer. Think about the phrases you use every day. The market took me out. I got destroyed. This chart is punishing me. I'm fighting the market. Sounds harmless, right? But your nervous system doesn't know that you're speaking metaphorically. When you say, I got chopped up, your brain prepares for pain. When you say, the market is killing me, your biology goes into survival mode. This is not drama, it's neurology. Tony Robbins said, words form our reality, not just in conversation, but in how our body reacts to stress. Language creates frameworks, and frameworks shape emotional states. So if your map is filled with words of violence, your experience of trading will feel like a war. And here's the cost of that map. Even when you win, you're exhausted because you didn't just enter a trade. You survived a battle, you beat the market, you escaped the squeeze. Your nervous system is in a constant state of tension and hypervigilance. Now imagine instead, what if your language changed? What if instead of saying, I fought the market, you said, I danced with volatility? One trader I coached did exactly that. We tracked his trading language for a week. Out of 100 phrases, 82 were conflict-based. Battle, crushed, attack, slayed, killed. I asked him to shift just one word, from fighting to dancing. 6 weeks later, his win rate improved by 20%, not because the market changed, but because he did. His nervous system stopped preparing for war. It started adapting. Let's run an experiment. Say these two sentences out loud. I lost $1,000 today versus my risk management activated today. Feel the difference? One makes you a victim, the other reminds you you're still in control. This isn't about lying to yourself, it's about choosing language that supports clarity, not crisis. Ray Dalio talks about this in Principles. He calls it accurate thinking. But here we're talking about supportive language, words that don't trigger your nervous system into collapse every time the market pulls back. So here's your protocol. For the next 7 days, ban these words from your trading vocabulary. Always, never, killed, destroyed, murdered, attacked. Replace them with sometimes learning, adjusted, tested, explored, and watch what happens. You'll breathe differently. You'll click differently because you're shifting from chaos to curiosity. Now let's go deeper. Think about how you describe the market itself. Is it an enemy? Is it a teacher? Is it a judge? Is it a god? Your metaphor matters because if you believe the market is out to get you, you'll approach it with fear. If you believe it's a brutal machine, you'll feel powerless against it. But if you see it as a flow of information, you engage with curiosity. That shift is everything. The map is not the territory, and your current map might be outdated, inaccurate, or even inherited from someone else. You might be trading with your mentor's map, your community's map, or your ego's map. But until you redraw it, you'll stay stuck in a geography of fear. Here's how you redraw it. Listen to your words, record yourself during trading, review the phrases. How many are aggressive? How many are victim-based? Count them, track them, rewrite the labels. Change stop loss got hit to risk function activated. Change price rejected me to price reacted at resistance. Change I got killed today to my system experienced volatility. Adopt a neutral tone. Emotionally charged words spike cortisol. Neutral language keeps your neocortex online. This might feel awkward at first. You'll catch yourself saying old words, but that's a good sign. It means you're becoming aware. And awareness is always the first step to change. Because once you stop naming things as violent, your body stops preparing for violence. You stop trying to win the war. You start trying to understand the pattern. You stop fighting price. You start flowing with probability. That's the new map. That's the territory of a sovereign trader. So the next time you hear yourself say, I always screw this up, pause. Replace it with, I'm still learning to navigate this pattern. Small change, massive shift. Because you're not just changing a word, you're changing your world. You're building a new map. And this time it's accurate, it's empowering, it's yours. There's a moment after the trade is over. The screen fades, the numbers blur, the chart no longer matters. And what's left is a feeling, not regret, not frustration, shame. It wraps around your chest like a tightening belt. It whispers, you knew better. It hisses, you always do this. And suddenly you're not just a trader anymore. You're a child who disappointed someone, a teenager who failed when it counted, a human being who just proved once again that they're not enough. This is where most traders get stuck, not in fear, not in greed, but in shame. And the worst part, you can't see it from the outside. You're still journaling, still showing up, still pretending you're just improving your edge. But inside, something is breaking. You're not just logging a loss, you're logging a belief, a story, one that sounds like, I'm the kind of person who messes this up. I can't be trusted. Maybe I was never meant to succeed. And that is the loop. Because shame doesn't stop you from trading. It keeps you trading from the wrong place. You don't hold your winners anymore. You're afraid of being wrong again. You exit early, not because your system says so, but because sitting in risk feels like sitting in judgment. You overtrade, not because you see opportunity, but because you're trying to redeem yourself. And now your trades aren't trades, they're performances, they're apologies. They're desperate attempts to undo a feeling that charts can't fix. You're not even looking for profit, you're looking for relief. But here's the truth. You cannot trade your way out of shame, because shame isn't rational. It's not based on your P&L. It's based on your identity. Brené Brown said it best. Guilt says I did something bad. Shame says I am bad. And when shame takes the mic, your system gets silenced. You start adjusting your behavior not based on data, but based on avoidance. Avoid losses, avoid exposure, avoid the feeling of being wrong at all costs. One trader I coached followed every rule until he didn't. One overleveraged trade, one liquidation. He didn't trade again for 3 months. Not because he was broke, because he was humiliated. He didn't say, I made a bad trade. He said, how could I be so stupid? But underneath that was the real belief. What if this confirms what I've always feared about myself? That's the voice of shame. And it doesn't whisper, it infects. It tells you the mistake wasn't something you did, it's something you are. Neuroscience shows that shame lights up the same brain regions as physical pain. Your brain literally can't tell the difference between a broken bone and broken pride. And in trading, that pain demands immediate relief. So what do? You click, you chase, you force. Not because you want to, but because you can't sit with the feeling of being the kind of person who just failed. And that's how shame becomes strategy, not written in your journal, but coded into your decisions. Every exit becomes an escape. Every entry becomes a distraction. And it works for a while, until it doesn't. Until the loop comes back, stronger, faster, meaner, and you're right back where you started, telling yourself, I just need more discipline. No, you need healing. So here's the protocol. Not a hack, not a mindset trick, a process. Step 1, name the voice. Say it out loud. This isn't the market talking. This is the part of me that learned failure equals rejection. Step 2, speak the truth. Literally, I made a mistake, but I am not the mistake. It will feel weird at first. Do it anyway. Your nervous system is listening. Step 3, log it, but not in your trade journal, in your emotional journal. What did the market do? And more importantly, what did you say to yourself when it happened? Capture the self-talk. That's the black box data. Advanced step, share it. Tell another trader about your worst, most shameful trade. Watch what happens. It will lose power. Not all of it, but enough to breathe again. Because shame can't survive exposure. It feeds in silence. It dies in conversation. And remember this, shame is the voice that says you must earn your worth through performance. But you don't. You were worthy before the chart, before the win, before the mistake. You don't need to fix shame. You need to interrupt it. Because the trades that hurt the most are often the ones that sound like you. And once you hear that, you have a choice. Keep obeying the voice or start rewriting it. You get to choose. Not as a perfect trader, but as a present one. That is the shame protocol. He doesn't show up on the screen. He's not in the candles, not in the spread, not in your risk calculator, but he's there in every hesitation, in every over-leveraged entry, in every refusal to cut the loss even when your system screams for it. The father figure, the one whose approval you could never quite earn. For some, it was a literal father. For others, it was a coach, a teacher, a mother, a boss, someone whose disappointment cut deeper than words, someone whose silence spoke volumes. And whether they meant to or not, they taught you something about worth, that it was conditional, that you were good when you were right, that mistakes made you less lovable, that failure meant you weren't enough. You didn't just learn this, you embodied it. You carried it into classrooms, into relationships, into work, and eventually into your trading. And now you don't see red candles. You see judgment. You don't see stop losses. You see rejection. You don't see opportunity. You see another chance to finally prove you're worthy. The market becomes a mirror, reflecting not price action, but emotional projection. You're not trading levels, you're trading ghosts. You hold too long not because you believe in the trade, but because letting go would feel like giving up. You double down not because your edge says so, but because walking away would feel like weakness. You avoid cutting the loss because to do so would mean saying, I was wrong. And that's unbearable when your self-worth is tied to being right. This is projection. Carl Jung called it seeing your unconscious in the external world. And when it happens in trading, it's devastating because suddenly price is no longer neutral. It becomes a personality, a judge, an authority. And no matter how much analysis you've done, you're now trading for validation, not for strategy. One trader I worked with kept breaking his rules in losing trades. He'd add size, he'd re-enter, he'd fight the chart. And when we traced it back, the real pattern wasn't technical, it was emotional. Growing up, his father never praised him unless he fixed something. So this trader developed a rule. If I fix it, I'm worthy. If I cut it, I'm weak. That belief cost him $200,000, not because he lacked intelligence, but because he didn't know whose voice he was trading against. You might be doing the same. You think you're chasing profit. You're not. You're chasing a nod, a pat on the back that never came, never came, a well done you never heard, a sense of peace you were never given. And until you see that, you will obey it blindly, repeatedly. You'll break your system to win a war that doesn't exist on any chart. You'll hold garbage setups. You'll hold garbage setups because to cut would be to quit. You'll avoid new strategies because what if they make you feel stupid? You'll overtrade just to feel seen. This is how identity leaks into execution. You're not trading the trade, you're trading the need to be enough. But here's what no one tells you. The market isn't your father. It's not watching you. It doesn't care about your performance. It doesn't know your name. And that's the gift, because it means you're finally free to stop performing. You're free to make mistakes without them defining you. You're free to be wrong without feeling worthless. You're free to lose money without losing yourself. The market is not your father. It's just data. It's not a test. It's not a judgment. It's not an authority figure. It's a mirror. And what it reflects depends on what you project. So the work is this. When you feel the pressure to prove, pause. When you feel the fire to fight, breathe. And ask, who am I trying to impress right now? Because it's almost never the market. It's someone else, someone older, someone louder, someone still echoing in your nervous system. And in that moment, you reclaim the most powerful click in trading, the one you don't make. The one that says, I don't need to prove anything today. I'm not being judged. I'm here to follow my system, not rewrite my past. Because until you stop trading with ghosts, you'll never hear your own voice. But when you do, everything changes. The market stops being a battleground and becomes a canvas, a place for presence, for sovereignty. And the next time price moves against you, you won't flinch. You won't chase. You'll smile, you'll breathe, and you'll say, this doesn't mean anything about me, because now you know. The market is not your father, and you are not that child anymore. You think you're rational. You've got rules, risk limits, a trading plan, but when real money is on the line, how often do you actually follow it? How many times have you entered a trade you knew you shouldn't, or doubled down chasing a loss you swore you were done with? The truth? You're not trading with one mind. You're trading with two. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman called them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional. It's intuitive, instinctual, and reactive. It sees 3 green candles and screams, it's going up. System 2 is slow, deliberate, rational. It double checks the bias, runs the math. It's the part of you that thinks logically if you can give it enough time. Here's the problem. System 1 always fires first, and it's always confident, even when it's wrong. In fact, the more confident System 1 feels, the more blind it becomes to nuance, to uncertainty, to risk. That's what makes it so dangerous in trading. System 1 evolved to protect you. It helped your ancestors run from tigers. It made snap decisions to keep you alive. But in trading, there are no tigers, just candlesticks. and your survival system can't tell the difference. So you see a sudden red bar drop and your body floods with cortisol. You exit too early, you re-enter at the worst time. Not because of edge, but because System 1 took the wheel. It happens fast, faster than you realize. System 1 notices pattern, your heart rate changes. You click, then System 2 shows up, too late, and it tries to explain what just happened. It was FOMO. I thought I saw a reversal. The news probably triggered it. But these are not reasons. They're rationalizations, excuses made to make you feel in control after the fact. Let me give you an example. One fund manager tracked his trades over 2 years. His average winner held for 47 minutes. His average loser, 3 hours and 12 minutes. He held his losing trades 4 times longer than his winning ones. When I showed him the data, he was shocked. I always cut losses quickly, he said. But he didn't. System 1 was lying to him, and System 2 didn't even know it. So what do? You create structures that force System 2 online before System 1 hijacks the show. Here are 3 tools that help. The pre-mortem. Before entering a trade, ask, if this trade fails, why might it have failed? Don't wait for post-analysis. Do it now before you click. This activates your critical mind. It forces you to scan for risks instead of only seeking confirmation. The 10-10-10 rule. Ask, how will I feel about this decision in 10 minutes? In 10 hours? In 10 days? This creates temporal distance. It brings your long-term thinking online. It shifts you from reaction to reflection. The stranger test. Ask, if a stranger showed me this setup, would I think it's good? This creates psychological objectivity. It removes your identity from the trade. It forces you to evaluate without ego. These simple shifts engage System 2. They break the loop. They let you think before you act. Now, to be clear, System 1 isn't the enemy. You need it. It's fast. It's intuitive. It sees patterns before your conscious mind does. But it needs oversight. It needs a circuit breaker. It needs to be questioned. That's your edge. Not just knowing your setup, but knowing who is trading it. Here's a question to try next time. Is this a System 1 trade or a System 2 trade? If it's fast, confident, and emotional, it's probably System 1. If it's deliberate, reviewed, and rational, System 2 is active. And remember this, System 1 always feels right, but feeling right is not the same as being right. That's the illusion. That's why traders sabotage themselves even when they know better. They're not weak, they're human. The only difference between good traders and great ones is that great traders build systems to catch their worst impulses. So ask yourself, what systems do you have to protect you from your own intuition? Because if you don't build them, System 1 will trade for you, and you'll keep confusing instinct with edge, emotion with conviction, impulse with strategy, until one day you realize you've been trading the same loop over and over again. But now, you know better. Now you understand the systems. Now you can make space for choice. You can pause, you can ask, you can reflect, you can bring your whole self to the click, not just your reflexes. That's when trading shifts from reaction to decision, from chaos to clarity, from fast and fragile to slow and sovereign. That's the real edge, and it's already inside you. You just have to turn it on. Silence isn't absence, it's data. But most traders never get quiet enough to hear it. They feel something and they act. A pull in the chest, a flash of fear, an image of a previous loss, and then the click. But those emotions, those thoughts, those urges, they're not instructions, they're recordings, they're echoes. Echoes of past fear, past shame, past need for control, and just because they speak loudly doesn't mean they're telling the truth. This is the skill almost no one teaches in trading. The ability to listen without obeying. Because you will always feel something. You will always hear a voice inside you, urging you to move, to enter, to get out now. But feeling is not a flaw. Reacting automatically, that's the danger. The legendary mindfulness teacher John Kabat-Zinn said, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." In trading, those waves are your thoughts and emotions. The art is in how you ride them. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychologist, wrote something life-changing. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our oath and our freedom. Let me say that again because it applies more to trading than any chart pattern ever will. There is a space, and in that space is your freedom. Most traders never enter that space. They live in immediate reaction. Price drop, click, Fear rises, exit. Greed spikes, double the size. No gap, no pause, no awareness. They aren't trading a plan, they're reliving a pattern. And patterns, when left unobserved, run the show. But the moment you pause, even for a few seconds, something radical happens. You realize, I am not the voice, I am the one hearing it. And that subtle shift can save you thousands, even millions. I once coached a trader who built a protocol she called the 5-second echo. Every time an emotional wave surged, she didn't click, she didn't justify, she didn't suppress. She simply whispered aloud, recording. That one word reminded her, this is familiar, not factual. And in that pause, she regained presence. She interrupted the loop. This is not about denial. This is not about staying calm or pretending emotions aren't there. This is about creating space between the voice and the action. It's not silence, it's sovereignty. Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist monk, said, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. In trading, your breath is not just a calming tool, it's your circuit breaker. Because breath is the bridge between body and mind, and when you breathe, you extend the space between feeling and doing. Here's a protocol I personally use. It's simple, it's powerful, it's called STOP. S, stop what you're doing. T, take a breath. O, observe what's happening inside you. P, proceed with choice, not compulsion. It sounds simple, but it's what Navy SEALs use in combat. Because when chaos hits, the one who pauses first wins. You don't have to become emotionless, you just have to become the observer. The one who says, I feel fear, not I am afraid. See the difference? I am afraid fuses identity with emotion. I notice fear arising creates space, and in that space you get to choose. That's when emotion becomes information, not instruction. But here's the paradox. The more you try to silence the voices, the louder they become. The more you try to suppress the feeling, the more it controls your click. But when you simply listen without reacting, you take back the mic. You become the one watching the chart, not the one controlled by it. You become the trader who sees emotion rise, honors it, but doesn't act on it until it aligns with clarity. That is true discipline, not willpower. Awareness. It's not controlling yourself. It's learning to stand next to the wave instead of drowning in it. So try this. Next time you feel the compulsion to enter too fast, to chase, to overcorrect, pause. 5 seconds. Name what's happening. I'm feeling the urge to act out of fear. This feels like last week's loss. This might not be now, it might be then. And just like that, you've entered the space. You've stopped trading with ghosts. You've stopped mistaking noise for signal. And now you can act not from survival, but from sovereignty. Because trading isn't just about edge, it's about presence. And presence comes from listening, not obeying, just listening. Most traders aim to become unshakable. They build rules, routines, systems to endure the chaos. They think they're building strength, resilience, mental toughness. But here's the problem. Resilience isn't enough. If you're just trying to hold it together, you're one loss away from falling apart. Because resilient systems survive stress, but anti-fragile systems, they grow from it. That's the difference. And that difference is everything. The term anti-fragile comes from Nassim Taleb. He wrote, "The wind extinguishes a candle but energizes fire." So the question becomes, are you building candle psychology or fire psychology? Most traders don't even know they're fragile, not until something breaks. A surprise drawdown, a news event, a misclick that wipes out a week of gains. And suddenly, they're not okay. They question their system, their edge themselves. That's fragility. Not because they lost, but because the loss broke their identity. They thought they were strong, but they were brittle. They had no slack, no give, no process for turning pain into power. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can build psychology that needs pressure to evolve. You can create a system that becomes sharper every time you fall. That's what anti-fragility means. Let's break it down. Fragile traders, they shatter when stressed. One bad trade wrecks their confidence. They stop journaling. They quit for weeks. They chase losses out of desperation. Robust traders, they endure stress. They can take the hit and keep going. Better than fragile, but still reactive, still playing defense. Anti-fragile traders, they use stress. Every loss becomes feedback. Every trigger becomes a lesson. They don't just bounce back, they bounce forward. And here's the paradox. To become anti-fragile, you have to do something most traders fear. You have to lean into loss, not recklessly, not carelessly, deliberately. Taleb called this hormesis. Small doses of poison make the system stronger, like a vaccine, or lifting weights, or training under pressure. You don't grow from avoiding pain, you grow from engaging with it intelligently. So, how do you build anti fragile psychology? Small losses on purpose. Take calculated micro losses, plan them, expect them, not to punish yourself, but to inoculate your system. Every intentional loss teaches you something, where your fear lives, where your identity gets shaky, where your rules start to crack, and every time you feel the sting, but stay present, you become stronger. Redundancy in protocols. Fragile traders have one coping mechanism: stay calm. When that fails, they collapse. Anti fragile traders, they have layers. If I get triggered, I pause. If that fails, I switch to breath work. If that fails, I step away. If that fails, I call my accountability partner. Multiple circuit breakers, not just one. Embrace randomness. Fragile psychology needs control. It clings to certainty, and when the market surprises it, it panics. Anti fragile psychology, it expects randomness. It doesn't ask, will the market go crazy? It asks, when it does, how will I benefit? It has protocols for chaos. It sees volatility as fuel, barbell emotional strategy. Taleb's barbell concept applies perfectly here. Be extremely conservative with core emotional capital. Protect your mindset, but be extremely aggressive with learning capital. That means taking small intentional risks for the purpose of learning. You don't bet the farm, but you use the market to teach your nervous system to handle discomfort. One trader I coached started to journal how he felt every time his stop loss got hit. At first, it was shame, tightness, internal dialogue like, here we go again. But as he kept doing it, the emotion faded. He stopped flinching. He started welcoming the stop because it meant his system was working. His phrase became, stops are proof I'm disciplined. That's anti fragility. He recoded his relationship to pain, and now he trades bigger, but with less stress, because his nervous system isn't bracing for disaster, it's dancing with it. Here's a deeper truth: anti fragile psychology isn't about being a robot, it's about being adaptive, like water, like fire, like nature itself. It's not about being fearless. It's about being fear aware and still moving forward. That's what makes you unstoppable, because the market doesn't reward those who never lose. It rewards those who evolve when they do. So build systems that learn from failure, create language that transforms pressure, design rituals that turn discomfort into growth, because the more you try to avoid pain, the more fragile you become. But the more you learn to digest it, process it, learn from it, the stronger you become. That's the anti fragile path. And every day you choose it, you move one step closer to the version of you that no loss can define, that no win can inflate, that no emotion can hijack, a version of you that isn't trying to avoid the fire because you are the fire. You've been flying on autopilot longer than you think. Every reaction, every rule you obey without question, every gut check override you justify with logic, it's not random. It's not even entirely conscious. It's part of a flight plan written long ago. But here's the kicker: you didn't write it. Your nervous system did. It was etched by years of experience, emotion, expectation, moments you forgot, but your body never did. Moments when being right earned love, when being wrong invited shame, when safety meant control and uncertainty felt like chaos. And now, decades later, you're still flying toward those old destinations. Not freedom, not mastery, not wealth, but validation, redemption, a sense of being good enough. You're not trading for profit, you're trading to prove something, and you don't even know you're doing it. That's the danger of autopilot. You think you're in the cockpit, but you're not. You're just executing coordinates you never chose. A trader once told me, I just want consistency. But when we dug deeper, what he really wanted was control. Because as a child, he lived in chaos: divorced parents, unpredictable rules, punishment without warning, and trading with its numbers, its rules, its logic felt like safety. But when trades went sideways, it wasn't just risk, it was abandonment, and he'd spiral. Not from loss, but from the feeling that life was slipping through his hands again. Do you see it? Your black box isn't built from logic. It's built from emotionally coded memory, and it's flying you toward a destination you didn't choose. So the question becomes, what are you actually flying toward? Approval? Revenge? Being right? Redefining the story someone once gave you? Because if you don't know, you'll keep adjusting your strategy to serve a goal you can't even name. And no system can protect you from that. So let's get real. Here's how you start rewriting your flight plan. Step one: Decode the objective. Ask yourself, what emotional state am I chasing in my best trades? Not the result, not the P&L, the feeling. Traders often say certainty, relief, validation. Those aren't outcomes. Those are destinations. They're what your body associates with being safe, being seen, being enough. And once you identify them, you'll see why you keep overriding your system, because the system isn't flying toward those feelings. The black box is. Step 2, audit the pattern. Look at your last 20 trades. Mark the ones where you broke your rules. Now ask, what emotion was driving me? Urgency, frustration, fear of missing out, fear of feeling weak? You'll start to see the loop. It's not random, it's repeatable, and every loop reveals a script. Maybe it says, if I wait too long, I'll miss out. If I'm wrong, I'm stupid. If I cut the loss, I'm a failure. And here's the secret. The market doesn't write those rules. You do, which means you can write new ones. Step 3, create a new destination. This is where it changes. Open a journal. Write down this question. What is trading for me? Now answer with no filters. Is it peace, mastery, freedom from proving yourself? Is it an act of presence, of sovereignty? Whatever it is, define it. Not as a goal, but as a felt experience. I want trading to feel calm. I want it to be a canvas for growth. I want it to remind me who I am when I'm not chasing someone else's approval. Once you define it, you can align to it. You read it before every session. You make decisions through it, because you can't course correct without a new heading. Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. But most traders begin with someone else's end. Their dads, their mentors, their egos. They trade toward an old tape. But you? Now you see it. And that means you can stop, you can reset the coordinates, and that changes everything. Because once you start flying toward truth, toward presence, toward clarity, you stop needing the market to make you feel worthy. You stop needing the win to feel whole. And that's where real growth starts. That's where trading becomes a mirror of your evolution, not your wounds. So here's your prompt. Before your next session, ask, what is this trade flying toward? If the answer is fear, you wait. If the answer is redemption, you breathe. If the answer is peace, you proceed, because now you're flying with awareness. Now you're flying on your terms. Now you're not the passenger inside a black box loop. You're the pilot. And the map, it's finally yours. The black box is where it all hides. The misclick, the freeze, the revenge trade, the urge you can't explain. It's the part of you that records everything but shows you nothing. It's where your emotions go when they're too overwhelming, where your impulses hide until they act, where your deepest trading habits stay invisible but powerful. Every time you say, I don't know why I did that, the black box just recorded another moment and left you flying blind. But what if you cracked it open? What if you replaced the black box with something transparent, visible, trackable, a glass box? Not to shame yourself, not to overanalyze, but to see what's actually happening inside you. Because here's the paradox. What's hidden controls you. What's seen can be chosen. This is the essence of metacognition. Not just thinking about thinking, but feeling about feeling. It's what Dan Siegel calls mindsight, the ability to see your mind without becoming it. In trading, this becomes your greatest edge, because you can't always stop an impulse, but you can always observe it. And when you do, it loses power. Let me share an example. One trader I worked with built something we called the Clearbox dashboard. It wasn't fancy. It didn't track his technicals. It tracked his internal state. For every trade, he logged 3 things: physical state, tense, calm, shaky; emotional driver, revenge; flow, shame; self-talk. What did I say to myself before the click? At first, it felt tedious, but after a few weeks, a pattern emerged. His best trades, they didn't come when he felt confident. They came when he felt boring. No spike, no inner drama, just presence, quiet execution. That's when he realized his real edge wasn't risk to reward. It was awareness to action. And here's why this works. The moment you bring language to your emotion, you shift brain activity from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex. You move from reaction to regulation, from the black box to the glass box. That shift is everything. Because transparency isn't about perfection. It's about pattern recognition. You're not just tracking trades, you're tracking who you are when you place them. That's emotional data. And when you collect enough of it, you start to see the real map. You stop asking, what was wrong with that trade? And start asking, what was going on inside me? That shift, That's when you go from system follower to self-aware executor. Here's how to build your glass box. Step 1, after each trade, ask, what was I feeling just before I clicked? Was that feeling familiar? Did it match the outcome? Log it, even in one sentence. Step 2, build an emotional P&L journal. Forget the numbers for a moment. Log the inner data. What emotion made you enter? What belief made you exit? What loop played out again? After 10 to 15 logs, you'll start seeing your true statistics. Not just win rate, but awareness rate. Not just profit, but pattern clarity. Step 3, design your transparency ritual. Before each session, read, today I will watch my inner signals as closely as I watch the chart, because what I observe, I can learn from, and what I learn from, I can outgrow. This isn't woo, it's neural rewiring. You're teaching your brain that the emotional state is just as real as the technical setup, and that both deserve equal attention, because the chart is not just external, it reflects your internal narrative. And when both are aligned, you move in flow. When they're not, you click in conflict. So here's your truth. The black box didn't fail you. It protected you. It kept you functional when awareness was too much, too scary, too raw. But now, you're ready to see. Now, you want data over drama. Now, you're becoming sovereign, because when you turn the black box into a glass box, you stop being confused by your loops. You start decoding them. You stop acting on impulse. You start choosing from presence. You stop asking, why did I do that? And start answering, here's what was happening in me. That's clarity. That's freedom. And that's what changes the game, not just for your trades, but for who you become while trading. Because once your emotional system is made transparent, it becomes integrated, it becomes fluid, it becomes yours to lead. And now you finally see the glass box was never outside of you. It was your attention all along. The black box is where it all hides, the misclick, the freeze, the revenge trade, the urge you can't explain. It's the part of you that records everything, but shows you nothing. It's where your emotions go when they're too overwhelming, where your impulses hide until they act, where your deepest trading habits stay invisible but powerful. Every time you say, I don't know why I did that, the black box just recorded another moment and left you flying blind. But what if you cracked it open? What if you replaced the black box with something transparent, visible, trackable? A glass box, not to shame yourself, not to overanalyze, but to see what's actually happening inside you. Because here's the paradox. What's hidden controls you. What's seen can be chosen. This is the essence of metacognition, not just thinking about thinking, but feeling about feeling. It's what Dan Siegel calls mindsight, the ability to see your mind without becoming it. In trading, this becomes your greatest edge, because you can't always stop an impulse, but you can always observe it. And when you do, it loses power. Let me share an example. One trader I worked with built something we called the clear box dashboard. It wasn't fancy. It didn't track his technicals. It tracked his internal state. For every trade, he logged 3 things: physical state, tense, calm, shaky; emotional driver, revenge; flow, shame; self-talk. What did I say to myself before the click? At first, it felt tedious, but after a few weeks, a pattern emerged. His best trades, they didn't come when he felt confident. They came when he felt boring. No spike, no inner drama, just presence, quiet execution. That's when he realized his real edge wasn't risk to reward. It was awareness to action. And here's why this works. The moment you bring language to your emotion, you shift brain activity from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex. You move from reaction to regulation, from the black box to the glass box. That shift is everything. Because transparency isn't about perfection. It's about pattern recognition. You're not just tracking trades. You're tracking who you are when you place them. That's emotional data. And when you collect enough of it, you start to see the real map. You stop asking, what was wrong with that trade? And start asking, what was going on inside me? That shift, that's when you go from system follower to self-aware executor. Here's how to build your glass box. Step 1, after each trade, ask, what was I feeling just before I clicked? Was that feeling familiar? Did it match the outcome? Log it, even in one sentence. Step 2, build an emotional P&L journal. Forget the numbers for a moment. Log the inner data. What emotion made you enter? What belief made you exit? What loop played out again? After 10 to 15 logs, you'll start seeing your true statistics, not just win rate, but awareness rate. Not just profit, but pattern clarity. Step 3, design your transparency ritual. Before each session, read, "Today I will watch my inner signals as closely as I watch the chart, because what I observe, I can learn from, and what I learn from, I can outgrow." This isn't woo, it's neural rewiring. You're teaching your brain that the emotional state is just as real as the technical setup, and that both deserve equal attention. Because the chart is not just external, it reflects your internal narrative. And when both are aligned, you move in flow. When they're not, you click in conflict. So here's your truth. The black box didn't fail you. It protected you. It kept you functional when awareness was too much, too scary, too raw. But now, you're ready to see. Now, you want data over drama. Now, you're becoming sovereign. Because when you turn the black box into a glass box, you stop being confused by your loops. You start decoding them. You stop acting on impulse. You start choosing from presence. You stop asking, "Why did I do that?" and start answering, "Here's what was happening in me." That's clarity. That's freedom. And that's what changes the game. Not just for your trades, but for who you become while trading. Because once your emotional system is made transparent, it becomes integrated, it becomes fluid, it becomes yours to lead. And now you finally see. The glass box was never outside of you. It was your attention all along. It always comes down to a moment, one pause, one breath, one flicker of thought just before the finger moves, and in that moment, everything collides. Every loop, every echo, every memory you didn't choose. The black box hums quietly, waiting to replay what it always has. The body tenses. The voice inside stirs. Click now. Hurry. Don't miss it. And for most traders, that moment is already decided. By the time they click, the decision was made by the loop, by the fear they didn't question, by the shame they didn't heal, by the ghost they never saw. But not this time, because now you see it. You've opened the black box, you've turned it to glass, you've listened to the tapes, decoded the voices, and traced the trades not to charts, but to childhood. And now you stand at the edge of the only question that matters. Is this my click, or is this my echo? Most traders never ask that. They think the urge to act is theirs, but it isn't. It's a memory dressed in urgency. It's survival wearing the mask of confidence until you interrupt it, until you say, "Wait, I see you." Viktor Frankl said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." That space, that's where your trading edge lives. It's not in the setup, not in the strategy, not in the software. It's in that invisible moment before the click. And now you have the tools to enter it: the breath, the pause, the awareness. You can feel the urge and let it pass. You can hear the thought and not believe it. You can observe the panic without becoming it. That's what emotional sovereignty is. Not the absence of feeling, but the ownership of action. That's what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. In trading, price is the outside event, but the click, that's yours. And now, you choose. You choose whether to enter because the system aligns or because the ghost is screaming. You choose whether to size up because of probability or because shame needs redemption. You choose whether to act from presence or from the past. That's the final power, the reclaiming of the click. Not the one that makes you rich, not the one that makes you right, but the one that breaks the loop. The one where you finally say, "This trade does not define me. This moment is not my childhood. This signal is mine, and this click is mine." That moment, when you don't act from reflex but from response, is worth more than any green day, because it means you are no longer ruled by ghosts. You are no longer a passenger on a flight plan you didn't write. You are no longer the child trying to prove your worth through execution. You are the pilot. You are the author. And the tape, it's yours now, not to replay, but to record anew. So ask yourself the next time your finger hovers above the button, is this mine? If it is, click. With power, with presence, with peace. If it isn't, pause with dignity, with awareness, with grace. Because that single pause, that single space, that single breath, that is the revolution. That is what separates the loop from the leader, the echo from the executor, the haunted from the sovereign. You have listened to 14 recordings from inside your black box, but this time you didn't react, you didn't obey, you watched, you learned, you rewrote, and now you know the truth. You are not the black box, you are the recorder. And the next click, that one's yours. Let it be clean, let it be conscious, let it be the beginning of a new tape.